Hello, everyone. My name is Alfonso and Santaniello, and welcome to the Agency Life podcast, the podcast for marketers by marketers. I sit down and talk to fellow marketers about their stories, their successes, the failures, ups, downs, and everything in between. Our industry is crazy, and so are our stories. Welcome to Agency Life. Welcome to Agency Life. My name is Alfonso Santaniello of the Creative Strategy Agency, and today we have Ryan McCollum of RMC Strategies. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So for the listeners that may not know you, tell us a little bit about who you are, RMC Strategies, and how you got into this wonderful marketing industry.
Sure. My name is Ryan McCollum, and really my career is twofold, and they kind of intersect, which is I have a political consulting company called RMC Strategies, which we basically help people get elected and help them stay elected. We also do some lobbying and some government relations work for nonprofits, etc. And I also work with Get Set Marketing as well. And so those worlds collided, and I got more into marketing when I started RMC Strategies. So when I left Governor Patrick's office, going on like 8-9 years now, I started up my own political consulting company. And I knew Dan and Joe Bassett from Get Set Marketing from YPS, which I actually helped start when I was working for the former mayor. And so I automatically went to them for marketing needs for my new consulting company. So they helped me with the logo and business cards and all that jazz that marketing companies help you with. And then I kept bringing folks who were running for office to them and saying, hey, this guy needs a logo, this woman needs lawn signs, etc. And so Dan, in all of Dan Bassett's wisdom, for folks who know him, one of the owners at Get Set Marketing, said, Ryan, why don't you just come work for us? And so we thought about it, and it made sense. And so Get Set Marketing is doing more and more political stuff as far as coming up with logos, creating websites, doing social media for people running for office and in office, and I was bringing those folks to them. But Dan also said, you know a bunch of people outside the political arena, and everybody needs help marketing. So you come aboard with us, we'll be partners. You bring us business from outside the political world as well with the political world, and you know we'll all grow from there. And it's been working very, very well for the last.
I was going to say it's been a few
7 to 8 years
already.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it's been 7 or 8 years since I've been part of Get Set and having RMC Strategies at the same time.
So what made you take that leap from starting your own agency instead of going to work for someone else?
Yeah, so I like I said, I left Governor Patrick's office 7 or 8 years ago. I wanted to get back to the Western Mass area. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, found a job in the Hartford area. So most of my relationships were in Western Mass. Even though I had political relationships all over the state, I was kind of Bostoned out, for lack of better words. Mm-hmm. I had been living all over Boston and was living in South Boston when I left Governor Patrick's office. So it was, do I want to work for yet another politician? Do I want to work as a lobbyist in a lobbying firm? Or do I want to try to do my own thing? And so I tried to do my own thing, and so far so good. It's worked out for the last 7 or 8 years. It's really, the political side of it is you basically eat what you kill, meaning a lot of my job is convincing people who are confident enough to put their name on people's lawns to say, well, I still need help, and I'm that person that can help them. And so, part of, and as a small business owner, part of being a small business owner is finding business. Yeah. We can all do the job when we get the job, but there's actually an art to convincing people they need help.
Yeah. And so you mentioned being a founding member of YPS,
yeah.
And for the people that are listening and are not from Western Massachusetts, sure. YPS is Young Professional Society of Greater Springfield, and Ryan is one of the founding members. And you, as well as a lot of other people locally, I see are always involved in the community, and that does tie a little bit into business development and meeting people and getting your name out there, but also it's giving back. And where do you find that balance of where you spend your time
Sure.
between working on the business and on the clients versus boards, committees, events, that kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, everybody's, in my life, I have, three main places where I spend time, right? Everybody only has 24 hours a day. And so there's your career and the things you work on that actually pay you money. There is your life, like your outside life with your family, your wife, your kids, whomever else, whatever you have, and friends are in that box too. And then there's what I feel is a civic duty to give back to your community. Mm-hmm. Those three things can interlap or intersect. So if I'm with my wife having a great time at an event that's good for the community with a client who's running for office, now all three things are
kill three birds with one stone.
And so my father was a Vietnam vet. My father was a school committee member in Springfield. He was he worked for nonprofits. He used to run Junior Achievement in Western Mass, and so he's always instilled in us not only that you need to give back to your community, but you need to leave your community and the world a better place than when you found it. And so I also believe the more good stuff you put out there in the zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it, the good stuff is going to come back to you. So if you can do what I said earlier is balance those three things and understand that those three things don't necessarily have to be siloed.
Yeah.
When I help out a nonprofit, I could get business off of that, right? So there might be somebody else on a committee that I'm on to plan an event that's like, hey, Ryan, my friend's thinking about running for office in Chicopee. Can they give you a call? Like,
yeah.
Absolutely. And so being out there, networking is helpful, and it can help in other places in your life.
So you said it was 8 years since you had started?
Just about, yeah. At least LinkedIn's telling me that. I'm getting all these messages from LinkedIn, people congratulating me on my 8th year anniversary. I'm like,
you're like,
8 years.
I guess it's been, yeah. So has there been, in the 8 years, what has been kind of like your greatest achievement that since you've struck out on your own and started working, even with the guest set, but you're still on your own. So what do you think your greatest achievement has been in the last 8 years?
So I think, it's twofold. You can point to certain campaigns that have been won, whether that's maybe going about 6 years ago now, I think. Justin Hurst, who's now the city council president, he came to me and to Get Set and said, hey, I'm running for city council, and this was the second time he ran. The time before, when he ran without us, he came in 6th, and there was 5 seats. So then he came to us, and I did all the politics, and I consulted with Get Set, who did all the logo, the branding of the campaign. We brand campaigns like they're a business. And Justin did all the hard work, right? And so you don't want to take complete credit for that stuff. Yeah. But Justin did all the hard work, and so he wound up going from 6th to 1st, and he beat the 5 people who beat him 2 years prior. Yeah. And so that was a little feather in my cap, and that was a good one to have as something that you can point to and say. Another accomplishment is that nowadays, not only people running for office, but people who might need help in some kind of marketing way are coming to you, right? And so I know it's probably gratifying for you as well, where like we were talking about, you can only kill what you can eat. But sometimes the food comes right to your door. Yeah. And I think it comes to your door because you've actually done well at other things in the past. And people are speaking about your talent or what you do well and recommending you. And so that feels good.
I feel like word of mouth is probably, at least in my side or my end of in my business, where the clients turn out to be better clients when it's a referral from either a current client or someone that knows the work that we've put in.
Yep.
Those clients seem to stick around longer compared to the ones, I always say the ones that are quick to sign on right away are also the ones that are quick to drop you in whatever, but
it's tough. Getting folks, politics is one thing, right? So if somebody's running for office, they need these things, right? And they, a lot of times they'll say, well, my nephew's studying graphic design at Babson, and he can do a logo for me. And then my daughter thinks she can do the website, and my best friend can do Facebook. I'd say, fine, try to do that. If you want to try to do that, it's going to be all over the place, and your campaign's not going to have a brand, and it's going to be strange. Yeah. The advantage of coming to me and getting Gets It, it's all one stop, right? Yeah. So there's political consultants, but not many have the marketing backbone that I have, right? Yeah. And so, so getting those folks isn't always that tough. Either they're going to take you or they're not. Getting somebody like a bar or a restaurant or a nonprofit or some kind of startup business to invest in an outside marketing company is tough. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to convince them because they think they can either do it internally or on their list of priorities in their budget, it's not up there. Yeah. And so they usually, you have a meeting and somebody's like, yeah, my administrative assistant does our Facebook page. And it's like, well, is that their job description, and where is it on their priority? And if you really think Facebook is a powerful tool for you to use, you might want to prioritize it more than having your administrative assistant update it from time to time.
Exactly, yeah. And I see that all the time. It gets put on a plate of someone who doesn't even know what utensils to use when it's there.
And even if they're good, a lot of times the positions of people who do that, it tends to be younger people, and a lot of times they move on. Yeah. Right? And they're like, oh, yeah, I was like, your Facebook page used to be awesome. What happened? Oh, the bartender who used to do that is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, well, of course.
So what do you think has been, so when you, like, going into, like, a potential client, and what has been the hardest, and you don't have to, like, say the client per se, but what has been the hardest client, or the preface of what was the hardest client to get, and because there's some clients like you really want to work with, you bust your ass to try to get them as a client, and sometimes they just don't pan out. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you've learned to help you get that client that you really want to work with? Because it's different with for me, I don't, for example, if someone's like, oh, what's your price? Like, I don't know. What do you need? Yep. I don't have, like, here's a checklist pricing. Yep. So for me, I always want that sit down, talk to them, figure out what their needs are, give them the price. And then from there, I decide if I really want to work with them or if I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. And so you want to do a wants and needs analysis with every potential client and say, well, what do you need and what do you want? And what's your budget? Yeah. Right? And so I found that trying to get a budget out of them on the front end is more helpful than trying to say, oh, these are all the things I want and need, and then them getting sticker shock by saying, well, that's what you wanted. So if they come in, they say, all right, we need a campaign to do X, Y, and Z, and we have $10,000 to do it, then we'll tailor what that campaign can do.
What if they tell you they don't have a budget? If I come with that, they're like, oh, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. And just like anything else, and it's hard not to, they shop around, right? Yeah. So some folks who come see us might come see you the next week, and they might say, well, this is what Gets It would say, and this is what so-and-so is saying. And so the other thing is, how do you give them enough to show that you'll be an asset to them without giving everything away, and having them either try to do it the same or try to say to another company, like, okay, this is what we think we need. And it's like, literally, that's what we laid out. Yeah. And so how you do those proposals, what you speak about in the meetings, it's really hard for marketing people and creative people to sit in a meeting with somebody who needs marketing help and not blurt out like, what would be cool?
Oh, you should do this.
Did this, and then these business people aren't dumb.
No, they'll take those ideas. It's a free idea.
Absolutely.
I've learned to stop, or at least try to stop doing that, because my mouth is always open. Yep. So anything I would think, I would say. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, a lot of times, I put a foot in my mouth in a lot of situations. But when it comes to like those first meetings with potential clients, I've learned not to kind of like set the bait, but not necessarily give them the full meal, because that's why they need the help, is because they don't have those ideas, and you just gave them 5.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is a tightrope act, because you do want to show that you do have good ideas, and it's also depends on the client, right? I mean, some of them and you trust and have been referred to by other people and trust, so they're not going to necessarily, shop your idea around or try to do it. I always tell them, well, take this idea for what it's worth, which is nothing. Here's a free idea. Yeah. and sometimes if you give them, you can tell it's like an idea that maybe they don't have, but anybody else would have, right? Like, oh, you should do like a spotlight on somebody on your team every week. Like every marketing company is going to say that, but to them it's new. It's like, okay, you know. So sometimes you can give them a little bit of an idea that's not necessarily reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Thing in the world. But it's, I mean, I'm trying to still answer your question. Like, what was, you know, one of the more difficult people to close or places to close, and what we did to close them. You know, I'm not the best at it. Dan's really, really good at it.
I'm horrible at it, and it's only me and my company that's like, I'm not as bad as it sounds. As a business owner and entrepreneur, I hate sales. Like, hate it. I hate the closing. I've always, and I think this is some of the clients I've had since in August is going to be 10 years, and some of the clients have been with me since I've started.
Sure.
And it's because I just don't. I forgot what I was doing with this.
You'd rather do the work.
I rather
than try to get the work.
And and a lot of, and early on when I was involved in a lot of nonprofits, organizations, it was primarily business, and then I started getting involved in more passion boards and committees. But early on, I met someone local to Western Mass, Sue Kaplan, and she was like, "You need to be out there. Whatever time you spend in the office, double that, because you need to spend that same amount of time outside of the office." And that's where, you know, meeting people and But when it comes to closing, I just can't. I'm not a sales guy, if that makes any...
No, I understand that. And I think I'm okay at the salesy part, getting people in. And what I was going to say, what I'm not good at, but Dan is good at, is staying on top of people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you have that meeting, and like, oh, that meeting went pretty good, I think they're going to hire us. Well, then a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and Dan's like, hey, Ryan, did you get back to so-and-so? I'm like, I think so. But Dan is really good at, like, all right, let's get back to them.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so you don't necessarily think you need X, Y, and Z. Can we do A, B, and C? You know, so that part of staying on top, and that's a sales thing. And sales isn't just schmoozing and getting people to like you. Sales is staying on top of people and getting back to them right away if they have something. And that's not necessarily what I'm great at.
Yeah.
I'm great at sitting across from you and talking to you and trying to get you there. Staying on top of folks is something that really, really good salespeople are good at.
Yeah, I've gotten better at the follow-ups, but early on, if they never responded back, I'm like, well, I guess that's a no. Like, so what over who do you at more on the people side? Who over the course of the last 8-10 years and everyone you met, and it doesn't have to be anyone local, but who do you think helped influence a lot of who you are today in marketing?
Sure. So I mean, on the marketing side, it's really been Dan and Joe and Mike, right? And so the Get Set team has been doing it for a long, long time, and I've learned 90% of what I know about marketing from them. And so, you know, the operation they have over there, you know, we used to be out there more, and they're not as much but I am. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, Joe is a creative director. He's been a graphic designer for his entire career, and he kind of just gets things. Nobody works when it comes to graphic design as clean and as fast as Joe. Like today, we whipped up a logo that's, you know, I'd put that logo up against anybody else's, and he whipped it up in like 3-4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so Joe's just really, really good at what he does. I mean, he's a beast. He's at that computer.
Yeah.
That's where he is. Dan's just a wonderful business guy, so he understands the business, and he's always out there kind of getting and drumming up business, but also keeping business, and being smart about how we do our business. And then Mike is just Big Mike is just the man when it comes to how we operate, and like kind of he's kind of like the heart of the business, and he's also kind of not the conscience, but he's the like no BS guy, right? And so like, you know, if I'm bringing him a client and I'm saying, oh, you know, I told them it cost $300 for this, and Mike's like, well, $300 is only going to give us X amount of profit margin, so you either have to go back to him and say it's going to be $400, or, you know, we're not going to really prioritize this. And so, I've learned to like go to Mike first before I start, blabbing out of the mouth. But Michael has so many connections with so many different vendors across the country, and he plays them off each other so well. And he just knows where the best bang for the buck is and how we can actually. It's a competitive market where we're at, right? So he knows how, like, all right, well, so if they're going to be able to do that for that, we can't beat that. So let them do it. Instead of trying to like have a race to the bottom. I don't know how they're getting that price. We'll figure out that later, but let them get that. Or he'll say, "Oh, they went to them. Well, we can beat them." Like, you know what I mean? So it's great to have somebody like Mike. So I learned a lot about marketing from them. The other people, and it's not really a person per se. But in doing what I do in politics, I work a lot with the press, and so whether they're writers or editors or even TV reporters, like I value their opinion on things a lot, and I bounce ideas off them, and I make sure to kind of cultivate relationships with those kind of folks. Yeah. Because by nature they're creative, just to be able to write, like have a blank page, and then write a story. And so I love to write. I write a lot of press releases and jazz like that. So I do learn a lot from local media, and then obviously like Tony Signoli, Paul Robbins, like those kind of guys that do what I do and have been doing it for much longer than I have. They're mentors as well.
There's definitely, I think it's for the younger, or when you're maybe out of college or even in college, the opportunity to find, and it doesn't even, I don't think it has to be in your industry, but finding that mentor or someone, not to guide you, but you can bounce things off of, or someone to look up to and really look at the mistakes that maybe they have done that you don't need to do. And so is there anything that you would tell yourself from, Ryan 8 years ago,
that's
like,
a good question.
Hey, don't do this. That was a pretty dumb move, or actually you're going down the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, is there anything you would go back and say, like?
Well, the other thing about my business is, and the political consulting side that's tough is that it's competitive by nature, and so if I choose to work with a certain candidate, that means I'm working technically against a different candidate. Yeah. And so early on, I got advice from a Cambridge city councilor at the time who said, Ryan, it's addition, not subtraction, meaning the more people and the more organizations and groups of people that you can add to being Ryan McCollum fans, the better. And so and I want everybody to like me. That's probably one of my weaknesses and strengths. But it's very hard sometimes to say, all right, well, Allison Werder, I'm going to help you. I respect you. You're a great friend. I think you'd be a wonderful state rep. Oh, yeah, by the way, Brian Ash, I respect you and I like you as a person too, but I'm going to try to take your job. It's hard. And so elected officials tend to understand it, but it's even if, so like Brian Ash and I are good friends and he understands it. But at the same time, maybe his wife doesn't, maybe his family doesn't, maybe his friends don't. And even him, it's still tough, right? It's still tough to be like, all right, well, you were working against me. Yeah. And so being careful on how you pick your clients when it comes to competitive stuff is a challenge, because when you're up and coming, the incumbents and the people who are going to win tend to not need you. Yeah. And so you kind of have to take flyers every now and then. A big flyer, not a flyer I took, but one of my bigger clients I ever had was Mohegan Sun. So I had Mohegan Sun. We were looking for a casino in Palmer, and I'm a Springfield guy, and everybody's on the MGM bandwagon, right? And so, it's taken some time to repair some relationships of some MGM people who saw me as, an adversary and persona non grata for a while, because I was saying that I don't think this is the best place for it. Since then, I wrote a column on Mass Live, and I talked about how great it's been and how, they're living up to just about everything they said. With that said, we still need to keep their feet to the fire and make sure they do what they say, because there was Springfield before MGM, and if they have to leave, there'll be a Springfield without that.
Springfield's not going anywhere. Yeah.
And so we need to make sure they do what they say. So that goes back to if Mohegan Sun won and MGM didn't, then I would have been like, pretty set as far as being like Mohegan Sun, Massachusetts, which we called in Palmer. So that part I would tell myself 8 years ago, continue to be careful in who you pick as clients, people who can still help you even after they may lose, right? So like Allison Werder is going to be a rock star forever.
Yeah.
Even though she's not the state rep, she'll be a rock star forever. So my relationship with her is going to help regardless.
Yeah.
My relationship with Mohegan Sun is going to help me regardless.
I 100% agree, because I have clients that are no longer clients, and not because of performance or anything like that. Either like they brought someone in-house internally, but the relationships are still great.
Yep.
They actually still refer people to me. So I think that cultivating and building relationships with the clients is as important as it is the process of getting them as a client, but continuing that. Absolutely. Instead of just making it about, okay, here's your service, give me the money, and like, see you later.
It's addition, not subtraction, and you never want to burn bridges.
No.
And you never know, like, even the folks on their way, if you're going on your way up and you're passing people on their way down, being cordial and not, in politics, a lot of people like to jump on and like kind of bash people on their way down, but you never know who's going to be on their way up. Right? And so, in an instant, that person who you thought wasn't was kind of like a political wannabe, now is in a position where you're like, oh geez, like I need to call him and ask him for something. And so you really have to be careful about your relationships, and you really want everybody to like and respect you, and you don't want to burn any bridges.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like you, where you want. I think I've gotten better a little later now, but there's always like everyone's got to like me, and so now I'm at the point where I kind of don't care anymore. Mm-hmm. I care enough because it's when you own the business, your name and your company, it's your reputation on both ends. But when it comes to, because not everyone's gonna like you, and that's what and doesn't even have to nothing to do with like me or you or the reason why they don't like you. Yeah. And that's where I think I started realizing, like, if they don't like me, then I don't care. I don't have to not like you back. But if you're mad at me, then you can stay mad at me. But I'm not gonna be mad about you being mad at me, because I just don't have that time.
And being content with it. If people don't like you, or you get a sense they don't like you, sometimes you get a sense that somebody doesn't like you, and you know what, they were just having a bad day that day.
Yeah.
But if you're doing things and you're out there and you're active and you're in people's faces to a degree, there's gonna be people who just don't like that. And maybe they're jealous of you, maybe they're the quote unquote haters, all that kind of jazz. And so being content with that is a big step. And it's been hard for me. I'm like, oh, why did that person, what did I do to them?
What was that look for?
And so, like you said, growing and learning that you shouldn't take that to heart or be obsessed by it, especially in politics, because there's going to be people who don't like me, don't like my views. I'm on Facebook a lot. I have like 5,000 friends on Facebook. And a lot of times I'm up there just kind of sparking discussions. And then there's folks who, people are like, why are you even friends with that person? I'm like, I'm not necessarily friends with that person, but they comment on my post and they say, completely opposite things, but it's good to have a discussion and keep it cordial, which we're losing now in America.
The cordial part?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Ryan, so what's your website if people want more information on you and RMC Strategies?
Sure. So my website's rmc-strategies.com. So on that, again, that's a political consulting piece, which also does include, there's folks who, it's not just people running for office and in office. I have some nonprofits who are clients. Mm-hmm. I got a pretty large cannabis client now. I started a group called Fair Play Massachusetts, in which we're advocating for sports gaming to be in other places besides just casinos and online, mainly where there's Keno, right? And so you can go to a sports bar, put $25 on the Patriots. Yeah. And so that's called Fair Play Mass. So that's the RMC strategy side, and then getsetmarketing.com is for all your regular marketing needs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ryan. Go to agencylifepodcast.com for this episode and others, and we will see you guys on the next episode.